Okay, welcome everybody to the next edition of the Speakeasy Story Slam. I am Greg, your host. Thank you for joining me, and I am pleased to be joined by a wonderful guest and a newfound friend of mine who came to me through another friend. This is actually her son, Patrick, who is here locally in the Colorado area. And Patrick has an amazing story that I've had the pleasure of learning about and getting to know him and his family. And Patrick, I'm going to have you introduce yourself here in a bit, but typically, as most of you listeners know, on the Story Slam, I come in with some fun questions and maybe some themes to explore with my guests. And Patrick and I may go down that road here towards the end, but I really want to give him an opportunity to share more about him. And story slams can come in different shapes and sizes, and we all have stories to tell, but Patrick really has one that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to and hear. It's a powerful story, and it's one of inspiration and redemption and faith and really just bravery. The guy just really exudes, like when I met him, just this positive, just caring, very present presence that just knowing a little bit of just what his journey has been about. Just meeting him, it's like, wow, he's really done work to get here. So I'm just really so pleased and honored to have you here, Patrick. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd love to just kick it off with just what's your story? Give us kind of a little intro, introduce kind of yourself, take it wherever you want it to go, and we'll just kind of take it from there.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Greg. I really appreciate it. And this is really awesome. I saw a previous episode of yours, and I just see that this is a really, really good platform that God's using for you to just adventure into many different categories and different people. So it's
Yeah.
nice to read people. I love people. People is my field. So my name is Patrick Quezada, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. Um, let's see, I am 44 years old, and I'd say my story is basically one of the prodigal son. It's a story of faith and knowing that God has held my hand, throughout this whole journey because I think my biggest offense growing up and my biggest stronghold that I've had is a rejection spirit. I've always felt rejection because I had some kind of a disconnect. I felt different than a lot of other people. I've always had a really good relationship and close relationship with my mom, and I'm really grateful for my mom. She's been a very, very, very strong, inspirational woman in my life that has turned her life around. And she has an awesome story herself, and it just really inspires me that she's such a strong person and introduced me to a God that can take care of any situation. Um, Growing up, I've had a lot of addiction on both sides of my family. It was very common to go to birthday parties, holidays, and everything, just, seeing a lot of family members smoking weed and drinking beer, popping pills, and some of this was at like kids' birthday parties. And now thinking back, and I'm like, wow, that's not normal to be, indulging in these kind of things and a kid's birthday. So 27 years old, my uncle had died of cirrhosis. He drank his liver to death, basically. And to be of somebody that young to lose your life to a substance, is very, very eye-opening. So in that moment, I didn't like addiction. I had a lot of friends that smoked weed and stuff in high school, and I did not like it. I wasn't an advocate for it or anything like that. I just basically was like, why would you do that to your body? Why would you want to not be in control of your actions and your inhibitions? So it was later on when I graduated high school that I kind of explored with having a social drink. I was involved in drama, speech, choir. I was a straight A student, graduated with honors. I was doing really, really good. That was one good a good thing about my mom. She made sure that I went to school. and went to church, and I had a really good foundation with my faith. I grew up Catholic, and in Catholic religion, that's what pretty much was to me, was a religion. I learned a lot of reverence, traditions, rituals, but I never really had a relationship with God. I had love for God, and respect for God, but not really a relationship. Um, and I always looked at God as this um, person to be feared. You know, I heard a lot. If you do this, you're going to go to hell. If you do this, you're sinning and everything else. But now I know that God is a loving God. He loves me and He doesn't want me to fear Him. So experiencing the drug addiction and stuff in my family just kind of pushed me away from it. But ultimately, there was something else that was kind of different about me. Um, I didn't really have my dad in my life, so I wasn't really hanging around with any of the guys. I would hang around my cousins and my aunts, my mom, and when I was a kid, I played Barbie dolls with my female cousins, and I knew that something was different about me. And I eventually realized that I was attracted to boys and not girls. And I've had a lot of, gay family members and LGBTQ family, a lot of cousins, aunts, and I just grew up around it constantly. So, I knew it was okay in my heart, and that's what I felt. So growing up, I explored that. Um, and knowing that I was different, I kind of felt rejected because I knew a lot of my female family members were, but not any of the males. And, for growing up a male in a Hispanic heritage, it's kind of hard to come to terms with. And I just felt like I was very black sheeped. And a lot of my family had rejected me. So when I felt this rejection, I decided to let me try drinking, because drinking is going to allow me to just kind of numb it and just deal with whatever and just not have any feeling or emotion by it. So I discovered drinking at a young age when I graduated high school, and eventually my uncle died, and I just went through this really dark depression. So I went from being a straight A student to dropping out of college. I went for a semester. I started drinking and partying, and then I came out to my family and to my school. I had just basically decided that this was the life that I was going to live. And, my mom is a very strong woman of faith, and she was there for me to love me, but she did not want to see me go down this path of addiction. And I was destroying myself, and I was self medicating. Pretty soon, I went from drinking like a bottle of vodka, maybe 2 bottles a week, to maybe drinking beer, popping pills of ecstasy. And then I started entertaining these relationships. I was always looking for love in all the wrong places because I didn't have a connection with my friends and family that much anymore. I was seeking it through these relationships that were not good for me. They were toxic because, I was in these relationships with men that now we were using substance, we were drinking, we were in this very Sodom and Gomorrah, very bad, bad behaviors and stuff. And I just remember at one point I was with somebody and they were very, very abusive to me. And I thought, what is my life coming to? I'm not going to, I lost who I thought I was. I was a very independent person. I was a very confident person, and I lost all that. And I was now lost in this drug, and I was also in codependency. I was in relationships, and I just felt like I could not be alone at this moment. So I remember I had broken up with an ex of mine, and I was super depressed. I was living in this studio apartment by myself, no furniture. I remember I couldn't pay my bills. I was so depressed, sitting just in the middle of the living room, crying all the time. And I remember I had this neighbor that lived down the hallway. She came over one day and she's like, Patrick, I'm here for you. And I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And I want to see you stop suffering. I know what's going to help you. And so she grabs her purse and takes out this glass pipe. And she's like, here. try this, and this is going to let everything just fall away and you're not going to feel pain anymore. And I was like, well, what can I lose? I'm tired of having hangovers and, just feeling like crap by drinking all the time. So I smoked it, and at first I thought it was cocaine, but she said, this is speed, and little did I know speed is another word for meth, so I tried for the very first time a hit of crystal meth, and that was it for me. That was it. I just completely numbed myself with this drug, and it just filled every sensation, like, the dopamine hit and everything else. Like, it was that high and that artificial happiness and joy that I needed. And it gave that to me. So I thought, for a while, it's fun for a season, but not only with that drug, I was also now experiencing more addictions. Like, what was I now doing for this drug? I would go out and, for a while I lost my apartment and I was homeless in the streets. So I would go out and I would, they call it boosting. And I would go out to stores and I would steal like electronics or whatever I could just to get my drugs. you know and this was not Patrick. This was not the Patrick that was a straight A student in drama, really friendly, outgoing person. And I met a very, very dark world of the gay community, and I think this is what my purpose is now that I've left this lifestyle of drug addiction. I really want to focus on helping and healing the dark crystal meth community and the gay community, because it's really, really, really dark and demonic. I was hanging out and I was just meeting people online and, just looking for people to hang out with and get high with. And while I was homeless, I would just meet people, to escape like the weather and stuff. Like, I would be walking around with my suitcases in the snow and hiding my suitcases behind bushes and stuff. And I didn't want to bring this around my mom, because at the time she was married, she was in a relationship, and I told myself I did not want to get her involved, because that's not fair to her. It's not fair to anybody to expose this life that I am now living to anybody else. It's my own, mess. I need to go through this by myself. So, I felt it was a lot safer to meet people online, to go and get high and just to seek a warm shelter. There's very dark places out there where you can literally go in, and hook up with people and just, pay for a $10 locker versus like a $60, $70 hotel room. And I pretty soon met a lot of really, really dark people that were in, to drug addiction, and, they were selling it, dealing drugs. I remember at one point I was, just running with people that would like sell huge amounts of meth. And I'm like looking at my life like, whoa, what am I doing? And it was just too much, to the point to where I'm so far in, I don't know how to get out. And if I try to get out, these people are coming after me and trying to literally want to kill me, because I know too much. And when you know too much, that's when it becomes dangerous. The worst thing that I've ever put my mom through was, my mom and I had gotten a restraining order against my ex, because he would come over at like literally 4 o'clock in the morning looking for me, trying to get me out of the house. So we had to get a restraining order against this person. When that happened, um, we got it. He ended up getting really mad. He got one against us. We all three went to court for it, and the judge was like, "You guys are in and out of here so much. I don't want to hear it anymore. Throw them all in jail." It was crazy. My mom has never been in trouble at all, and now she's getting arrested for my behavior. And it was so hard for me to deal with that. And thank God that she was only there one night, but and it's off of her record. She's a pastor. She's a very, well-known, beautiful woman of God that like would never do anything like this. And I'm just like, now my actions are going into her life and making a mess into her life. So this has really, really taken a toll on our relationship. That's why I would love to eventually, make up for all the lost time. I can't do anything about it, but all I can do now is be the best person that I can. And that's why I'm just glad to be out of it. Like, I went into a recovery home in 2016, and that was a faith-based recovery home. That's when I decided not to be Catholic anymore, and I went into this Christian Pentecostal recovery home, and um, I made the decision to give up everything. And I was on meth, alcohol, cigarettes, psych meds, and I just remember going in there so broken, I was going to die, literally. My mom's like, if you don't leave now, you're going to die. So, we booked a trip for me to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that's where I went into this home, and these group of guys just laid hands on me, started praying over me, and I just remember freaking out. I was like, this is a cult. I want to leave. I don't want to be here. Freaky. But they were praying in tongues and in the spirit of God. And when they laid hands on me, I felt like this huge weight just lift off of me. And I experienced complete deliverance from this drug and from everything. I didn't have any withdrawals. And it was weird because I was on lithium and, just like all these hardcore drugs, and just to get that out of my system, not to feel any withdrawals was amazing to me. I went to my doctor and they're like, how are you not withdrawing on this? And I said, God's real. And then in that moment, I was like, all right, God, I'm going to give everything to you. So in 2016, not only did I surrender substance abuse, but I surrendered same sex relationships so that I can focus on the relationship with God. And I'm like, you know what? Every relationship I've been in has been toxic. And I know that in God's word, He does not desire this for my life. And that's the whole taboo, and that's the whole line that it's so hard to speak about, to a lot of people right now, because sadly, a lot of people are very hurtful and hateful to the LGBTQ community. And it's really, really, really disgusting. And I don't like it because they've been so hurt already by trauma and by so many different things. And who is anybody to judge anybody? First of all, I'm like, everybody, everybody's good and everybody sins in one way or another. So I'm not going to tell anybody where they're going or who loves them or who doesn't. I've been part of the church, I've been part of the community. And I believe my mission is to show a loving relationship between the two because it has nothing to do with God. It's religious people that are just judgmental. And, I've been hurt so much and I just want to help and heal people.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that.
Sorry.
I knew pieces of it, Patrick, but you paint a pretty vivid picture of the trajectory of your life from childhood, where straight A's, thriving, doing great, and then yeah, it just sounds like you grew up kind of noticing that there were these issues within the family of addiction and drug and alcohol abuse that you seem to repel against. But then when things started kind of feeling like the walls were closing in, it felt like, okay, that was kind of a refuge and kind of a way, like you said, to numb yourself from feeling isolated to feeling different to feeling depressed to feeling all those things.
Mhm.
So so when you went to recovery in 2016, um, tell me about kind of, what would you say, like, for at that point, because had you looked at any other recovery programs before then? Was that the first time that you basically committed to going away, going to Albuquerque and like really getting help? Was that the first time?
Well, the first time I think was in 2008. I went to a church actually pretty close to my mom's house called New Hope Ministries. And that was also kind of a very similar recovery home, faith-based, Christian faith-based program. In that moment, though, I didn't really think I was done. I wasn't ready to surrender yet. And that's the whole thing, I tell everybody is unless the person is ready to quit, it doesn't matter who tells them what. My mom, I remember at one point she was so sick. She had a lot of health issues going on. And it's not that I didn't love my mom. I loved my mom with all my heart and I wanted to be there. But this addiction is a disease. And that's a lot of times a lot of people don't understand that. It's just like any other disease. It's hard to break that if you're that physically dependent on a drug.
For sure.
Yeah, so I went into that New Hope program in 2008 and I wasn't ready. And I just think that anytime I'm in Denver and I try to do recovery, it doesn't work because this is my stomping grounds. It's too easy for me to fall back out, to get tempted, and to go back out there. And ultimately I wasn't ready. But 2016 was the first time I actually left Colorado to seek a better life. And it was scary at the same time because I didn't know anybody. So, I was like, okay, well, if this works, great, but I got to give it my all. I didn't come out here for nothing. So
I think that was kind of what I was getting at, is that I've done a lot of story projects with people who have gone through their own addiction journey and um, making their way towards recovery. And very much like what you said, you have to reach a point where you decide enough's enough and it's time. It's time to make that drastic leap. And so that's why I was curious at 2016, what was the pinnacle part? Like, what was the uh I guess you could just say, like, the breaking point for you to basically say, I'm willing to do this and I'm committed to doing it.
the breaking point was just knowing that um if I didn't, I was going to die because not only was I suffering in this drug addiction, I was suffering in, being exposed to these relationships and this very dark sexual addiction too. Like I was literally surrounded by demons all the time and just I was anorexic and bulimic, at the same time. I've always had this eating disorder that I don't really talk much about either. Growing up, I was probably about 300 pounds in middle school, and that was really hard. I have really bad eyes, and I had like these really thick glasses, so I was made fun of for wearing glasses and being extremely overweight. Um, so when I discovered crystal meth, that was it for me. I'm like, that was another huge reason why I continued to use because it suppresses your appetite and you never want to eat. I remember I literally go weeks without eating anything, not even drinking water. And what God showed me, the way that Christians fast to get close to God by not eating and sacrificing food to pray and seek God. Well, when you're using meth and you're using the drug, you're basically on a fast for the devil and for Satan because you're also not eating and you're doing these behaviors to get closer to darkness. So it's basically the same thing. And, when I started losing weight, I started getting all this attention. Um, and I was very involved in like even amateur like pornography and stuff like that, and just like this really dark world, and I just knew that if I continued that route, I would surely be dead. I remember there was one time I was hanging out with these persons in Boulder. I was staying in Boulder for a while. This one person I met online was like, come and stay with me and, just get away from this person that's trying to kill you. I was like, okay. So I was staying with this person and I remember we had went with another friend of his. His friend was like, come and help me move, and I'll give you guys all the drugs you want. So we went to go help this friend move. It was an apartment. And I just remember looking around and everybody had gloves on except me. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. So what God showed me is I was leaving fingerprints on everything while everybody had gloves on. And then I noticed they would have their phones up and they would just like secretly be taking pictures of me doing all this stuff in this house. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I didn't care. It was high. I was just doing what I got to do, trying to survive. Anyways, a couple of weeks after this had happened, and we had ended up moving for these people. I had a friend come up to me in the streets and was like, Patrick, you did not help them move. You realized you helped them rob this place and burglarize this place. And not only that, you helped to move a dead body. You helped to move a dead body. And I was like, what? Because I remember we carried this heavy, heavy trunk, and it was really heavy, and we put it in the back of this white truck. And I just thought it was furniture and stuff. That's what they told me. And that's what I heard. At first I didn't know if they were trying to freak me out or anything like that. But I remember seeing that particular person. I was on probation at the time, and I went to go do a breathalyzer because I had a DUI that I didn't take care of. So I had to do daily breathalyzers to make sure I wasn't drinking alcohol. It's funny because I had a breathalyzer machine in my car. I could drive around higher than a kite off meth, but just not drinking beer. I'm like, how does that make any sense? That's so.
Mm-hmm.
But so I remember being there and doing these breathalyzers, and I ran into that person that gave us all the drugs to move. And God, the Holy Spirit showed me, Patrick, this is your moment. Press record on your phone and go confront this person. So I did. I hit record. I went up and I was like, hey, what's up? How are you? And he's like, hey, Patrick. And I was like, I just wanted to ask you something. I'm like, somebody came up to me and said that supposedly I helped move a dead body, and we robbed this place, and well, and his eyes got as big as dinner plates, and he's like, no, that never happened. I was like, okay, I was just making sure. Walked away, click, saved my life. Yeah.
So yeah, I could see where that would be kind of the breaking point for you. So you have recently published a book that chronicles your story in very vivid detail. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to put your story in print and to share it. Was that something that you had wanted to do over time, or did that kind of, sometimes writing a book can be kind of a quick little burst of inspiration, but was that something you'd always wanted to do?
Well, it's funny because it's a poetry book mostly. It's a coffee table poetry book, and I've been writing poetry since high school. And I was always that was always my therapy and my outlet. Writing. I love to write. That's the best therapy ever. That, and I would always drink and listen to Alanis Morissette records and cry over my ex-boyfriend. But but yeah, writing for me was amazing. And I was writing, like, I remember at one time I had like 300 and something 400 poems written out, and that's probably what my catalog is now. And in 2008 or somewhere around that, God gave me this idea to put together this poetry book. And it's a collection of poems, of basically my testimony and all these short clips of what I've gone through, and all these different flavors of emotions all over the place. The high moments, the mountaintop moments, the valley, deep in the valley, the drug addiction, the eating disorder, the alcoholism, the abusive sexual relationships, family moments, all kinds of stuff. So I wrote down all these poems, and God gave me the idea. And the name of the book is Open My Encrypted Heart. And basically, the title comes from, like I said, looking for love in all the wrong places. And basically, my heart, I gave it to somebody like instantly, like right away, until I continued to get burned and rejected and just tossed aside and just thrown away all the time. So eventually, my heart, I encrypted it, so nobody can get in this heart. And I didn't want anybody in it. Um, so I was walking around with this bitter, broken heart that I didn't want anybody in anymore. And then finally in 2016, when I met God and I had that encounter with Jesus, he's the one that opened up my encrypted heart. And that's where the journey began to really, truly transform this writing from, these hurtful, hateful moments to experiencing the one true relationship and love that I needed. And that was the freedom of Jesus. And, that's my book.
I
So
was literally just going to say, would you happen to have a poem memorized that you could share? Is there one particular with your book in hand that you is a favorite that you'd like to share with us?
Well, the very, very first poem that I ever wrote was, I think, in my freshman year, and I have that one memorized. It's called Love. Love is what you see, love is what you feel, love is inside you is love. Caring and happiness are what love brings. So if you're feeling lonely and sad inside, find someone to turn to when you feel bad inside. That was the first
Mm,
I ever wrote. And that was my idea of love. And then it just all crashed and burned and turned into freaking a mess. I mean, there's very raw poetry in there and uncensored. There's I'll drop a couple of F bombs in there too. And I was kind of cautious with that. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I should really say these things because I'm like, I'm trying to hold a good testimony and character and everything else. But at the same time, I felt peace with it because, what does it say? Jesus meets people where they're at. And I just feel like, you know what? I would rather speak real. If I need to come down to a level to where I've been there and I need to really, speak the language of somebody that's hurting, then that's going to resonate with them versus trying to speak all, holier than thou and just, I would rather meet the broken than have this expectation of being, you know, on this, platform of something that's religious.
yeah. And I think that expressing yourself authentically in whatever language that looks like for you, and in that, like you said, in that moment, that was just where you were at and what felt truthful to you and saying what needed to be said. Um, I'm curious just because I'm fascinated with people who write poetry because to me it's a skill set that is like any other art form. It's something that some people are gravitated to and just have a skill towards. What is it about poetry for you that um versus traditional writing versus say um putting your thoughts down in a journal and just saying today I went through this as this. It sounds to me like poetry is a form of self-expression for you that just seems effortless. If you've got 300-400 plus that you've
Yeah.
accumulated, what is it about poetry that is uh kind of your pathway to self-expression?
I think for me, it's always been harder for me to sit down and commit to like a lengthy, um, maybe an ongoing like autobiography, just to like go from chapter to chapter and just really pen out my life, versus, having all these different snapshots of, okay, well, I remember when I went through that, what could that be about? And just get it out. And I always pray like over my gift. Like I love photography too. I pray over my phone when I take a lot of photography and I'm like, you know what? God, let you, guide the pen when I write, let you take the pictures, let you create the art and the gift within me. So a lot of my writing comes from like it's funny because I come out with the title to the poem first. Like it's funny because I'll have like a notebook and paper and just all these poetry titles flood, and I'm just like, okay, I'll list like 20 something titles and then I'll just like randomly like choose one title and then I'll pick it and then boom, the poem just flows from the title.
It's
It's,
kind of like writing a song. It's like you
yeah.
come up with the title of the song and then the lyrics just follow once you're kind of locked into what the song title is and what it's about.
Yeah.
See, I just find that fascinating. Um, Another piece that I think would be interesting to pursue with your book there is um, I think poems have a way to tell a story within the story. I think that there's imagery and certain words that are used that um, you can almost go line by line and expand on what does this mean. Um, there's several poets that I am studying who I have to read them again and again and again just to be like, okay, what are they truly saying? What are they saying? And sometimes just asking them direct, like, what did you mean by this? Could be
Right.
really fascinating to take a poem and then kind of say, okay, where were you when that was written? What was your state of mind? What kind of feelings, thoughts, emotions were going on? And just now looking at it, does it have a different energy today as it did then? You know what I mean? So I feel like poems, like songs, you can hear it and listen to it, but then be like, how do you interpret it now versus when you wrote it and sang it, right?
Yeah.
So that could be something really cool to take what you've done and almost I'm thinking of, you know, like when you were doing your book signings, like going and doing like poem readings, poetry readings, where you would read the poem and then almost create a discussion around it and tell the story behind that poem. And
That's
that could be really cool. You know, it doesn't have to be maybe every page, but like you could pick, say, like a dozen poems in your book and
right.
have people there. They could purchase the poems and read along with you. And
That's
then
so,
after you read it out loud, you say, okay, let me tell you where this came from.
that's a great idea. I love
And
that.
then even just be like, you know, now that I'm reading it today, like it's hitting me different now than when I wrote it, and kind
Hmm.
of explain kind of how you've grown to the person you are now versus the person when you wrote it. So that's one of the things that I think poetry has the ability to do is it like you said, it's a snapshot of
Hmm.
where you were at that time, but
Hmm.
there's a story behind that snapshot, you know?
I love that it doesn't, it doesn't have to literally follow any type of criteria. Like it can go anywhere.
For sure.
I don't have to rhyme in a poem. It could be one or two lines and that's it. It can be, 2 pages. There's some poems that are very long, lengthy versus other ones that are just like 2, 3 words and that's it. You
Yeah.
don't have to have certain rules to write it. And I'm just like, and it's a piece of art. I just love it, just it
And
is.
you can even have the audience read one of their favorite poems and say, okay, what does that mean to you? You know,
Hmm.
how would you decipher that poem in relation to what's going on in your life, you know?
Yeah.
And now kind of almost hear someone else's take on words that meant something to you here, and this means something to them here. Like there's a lot of potential, I think, with taking your work and really, you know, as a standalone piece, like you said, it's a coffee table book that you could always flip open and just find a poem that touches you, but you could
Mm.
almost make it an interactive um, experience where you bring people in and kind of create an ongoing discussion around poetry.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, just off the top of my head, just
That's
thinking,
a great idea.
you know, get you out on tour with your book, and
Yes. I
that'd
love
be really fun. Um, we're getting kind of towards the end here, time wise, but I wanted to. I kind of want to know what's next. Like thinking about things like that. You know, that's just totally speculative. But like when you think about, I mean, you're a young guy. You still have so much life ahead of you. You're healthy. You obviously are just. I just get the sense that you are probably as grounded now as you've ever been.
hmm
The lessons, the growth, all of it. Um, and I think you even touched on this before. You can't go back and change what happened yesterday.
Right.
You know, all you can really do, and I think you're a great example of this, is um, you can look back and reflect
Hmm.
and kind of understand what happened, but you can't change it. You can't do anything about it. All
Right.
you can do is embrace the person you are today, be as connected, grounded, present, um, in all ways. But then tomorrow is even just as kind of like possibilities and potential. So when you
Hmm.
think about like what are the possibilities and potential for you, what does that look like?
Well, I don't think I'd want to change anything either because I think it's the perfect recipe which made me to be me. Because I think if I would have gotten it the first time and never went back to addiction, because I have fallen over and over again, but I believe each time that I fell, I realized that I couldn't do it on my own, and I know who can, and reached out to a God that can. And I believe each time got me stronger. And I think what's coming next is, just my ability to actually finish this and just to get it out there so that it can help other people. I'm getting ready to go to Chicago actually on Thursday, and I'm going to this conference, an event called the Freedom March. And the Freedom March is a bunch of us that have left the LGBTQ community, that dropped all labels of sexuality, all past traumas and everything, just to find true identity in Jesus. Um, because I spent so many years labeling my identity as, oh, I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a gay man, I'm a broken person, I'm, everything else. But my true identity is a man of God. My true identity is a sinner saved by grace, somebody that will fall and mess up, but get back up and keep going. So, if I can just share one message, it would be, throw all labels out the door and just find what your true goodness is and your true identity in that one ultimate, you know, divine, true God or true, whatever your higher power is, you know. Um, and just go with that, because I think that once we mix labels and once we have all these different divisions and religions mixed up, that's what messes everything up. But if you can just take every good part from each one and just realize that we're all humans, you know, that deserve an opportunity to be loved and to be good people, and just to know that when you're looking down on drug addicts and, I mean, there are so many hurt, broken, traumatic people out there, but just remember that that's somebody's son. That could have been your son, that could be your brother. And just, what would you want for that person? Would you want to just throw them away, or do you want to help them? And just know that, there's not one sin that's worse than the other. We all have goodness within us and we all do bad things. So, we should all just learn to love, you know? It's about
I
love.
was I was literally going to ask you to um, provide kind of a final closing thought and message for anyone who can relate to what you've been through. Maybe they're there right now, or
Mhm.
maybe they know someone who is going through this. I think there's so much wisdom and just heart that you have with you now that has just gotten stronger as each day has gone on, that the ability to help others who have been on the journey, who are in the journey, who have yet to take on the journey that
Mhm.
you have. Um, there's so much there to provide for them. And I'm just a big believer that, and this is why again, hearing people's stories, like even if it is traumatic and it's hard and it's painful and it's it's caused family tensions and it's it you lose faith, you lose a sense of hope. But I just feel like if we get through that, the growth and just the clarity that comes and just the fullness of life, again, you can't change it, but all you can do is look back on it and say, how am I the man I am today
Yeah.
because of what I went through? And in talking with a lot of people who have gone through similar journeys, I say, do you regret any of it? Like, are you sorry that that happened to you? And they're like, no. I feel, my connection to God, my connection to my family, my sense of purpose and helping others through their
Yeah.
struggles um, has become so much more clear
Mhm.
because I went through that. Because if I went through that and I were still addicted, I was still in and out of jail, still just, flailing, where's the growth, And then let's say my life ends and I didn't do anything to redeem, like what kind of a life? I feel like I have a life that is full of redemption, full of hope and possibility, but also of service, of a higher power, but also my power and
Yes.
others. So I just feel like you have an inspirational story. It's not a sad story. It's not a story to like go, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, wow, look at you. Look what you've done. Look at the journey you've been on. And that's admirable.
I just love how God can make broken things so beautiful.
Yeah.
seriously, because, it's like, I think my biggest regret was spending too much time people pleasing, trying to seek love and validation from people, because I wasted most of my life doing that, that I stopped living, and I didn't take care of myself.
Yeah,
I was just trying to please everybody else but myself and take care of myself. And I just went through so much hell. But I believe getting through that hell and disconnecting from everybody allowed me to find, the one God that was actually worth living for, who rescued me. So now he pulls up the broken things to help other people. And I believe he does that to show how real he is, and just to show, glory through something higher than ourselves.
sure. Wow. Well, I am proud of you, my friend. That is uh an amazing story. I so appreciate you being vulnerable and agreeing to do this. And for my listeners, as I always do, I want to make this show interactive. So being that there weren't a whole lot of questions and themes that I asked Patrick to reflect on, then I would ask you to do the same, but maybe take away some pieces of what he shared that maybe you find some connection to. Maybe you're going through your own battles, or someone who is, and maybe questioning, how strong is your faith? Um, you know, Looking back, can you look back on decisions and actions that rather than feel regretful, feel like, okay, how am I better now? And how can I be better now, knowing what I didn't know then, but I know now? It's always about lessons and growth. So, Patrick, if you're okay with it, I always like to encourage the listeners to interact with me and with my guests to just share their thoughts and feedback. Obviously, I want to feature the books. People can go online and purchase Patrick's book and book of poetry. And yeah, just would love to get your thoughts on the session from today and your takeaways. So, Patrick, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your heart. I wish you all the best in everything in the future. You've got a lot of possibilities and potential, I see, which is exciting. And thank your mom for putting us in contact for me too.
Well,
And to my listeners, thank you for tuning in. This has been a wonderful edition of the Speakeasy Story Slam. We will have more episodes forthcoming. Thank you all for being here, and stay safe. Keep those stories coming. And Patrick, be well. We'll see you soon.
you too. Thanks, Greg.
You bet.
Thanks.